and we'll do the weather in 1 hour's time. We welcome to the Ignition Radio Studios Mark Burns. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Right, now we're talking mental health for the next half hour or so. And, of course, you are with Stockton and Middlesbrough Mind, a charity. We say about things that should be swept under the carpet. Mental health is one of those sort of stigma type things that people don't necessarily want to talk about for various reasons. Why do you think that is, Mark?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we've actually got some money from Middlesbrough Council to try and demythicise, is that the correct word, stigma. I think stigma is very much tied up with shame and hiding things. And I guess as a society, we've got a lot of embarrassment about people being vulnerable generally, but particularly in terms of mental health. I guess we've got all those images in our heads from, the 18th century of asylums and things like that, where actually mental health issues are really common. In any given year, 1 in 4 of us will have some sort of mental health problem. So I think in lots of ways it's historic, the fact that all this stigma around mental health. Because we obviously don't have it around physical health. If someone's got a broken leg, they don't, go away and hide and not talk about it.
Now, do you think, because mental health, I consider health as being a large pond, and if you have a mental health issue, it's like dropping a stone in the middle of the pond. It creates ripples, which does affect family, friends, other people as well. It's a stigma that has to be talked about, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I like that metaphor. I may even steal it and use it myself at some later date. And I think in terms of that metaphor, as you say, if you've got the individual in the middle, stigma affects them. I know when in my 20s, I know you won't believe this, but I'm almost 55 now.
No.
I know.
You don't look a day over 30.
Right. But I had mild depression then, and I was so kind of ashamed about that, or uncomfortable perhaps about that, that it didn't really cross my mind to go and get help. But obviously, if I'd got help earlier, that would have been good, because the sooner with any mental health problem or physical health problem you get help, the better. So I think stigma affects the individual, but as you say, it also affects their relationships with other people as well. I mean, I noticed at a meeting a couple of days ago, and someone was saying in passing that one of their clients who had a mental health problem was being bullied by people at a bus stop, simply because people picked on them, that side of sort of thing. And as you said, sometimes within families people are ashamed of it, so it kind of gets brushed over the carpet. Which is the last thing you really want if you've got a problem. You want to be able to talk about it and be supported. And actually, even the health service, they've recently said that they want to put mental health on parity with physical health, because there's a lot less spent on mental health, and they've recognised that more needs to be done.
Yeah. Do you think that the government are doing enough to promote mental health as far as funding is concerned? Because the government, which is quite worrying at the moment, is that they are cutting funding to key projects and key areas. But do you think that the government are doing enough to actually promote mental health in sort of like funding it?
A lot of our funding comes from bidding to other charities and charitable trusts and stuff like that. So we get a lot of money that way. We do get some money from local government, like I said, Middlesbrough Council, for example, are giving us some money. And I guess indirectly we get money from the government, because we get money from the big lottery fund and that kind of thing. I don't think we get any money directly from the government, because we're not part of the health service. But generally, I mean, the government themselves have admitted they need to spend more on mental health.
Yeah. And of course, as I said, we're talking about the stigma of mental health. Do you think that there is enough information out there at the moment that people can go and find out about mental health? Do you think there's enough information for people to find out why mental health is such a big issue?
I think it's something we need to do more on. Obviously, as Mind, we're trying to do our best in that area. But generally, as we both said, that physical health is something quite easy to find out about, but there's all these barriers around mental health. I mean, obviously, if anyone out there does have a mental health problem and wants to find out more, I mean, other than go to their GP, they could Google the Mind, the National Mind website, which has a lot of good information on it. I guess in some ways, now that we're not so reliant on leaflets although they still useful for some people. So many people know on the internet. I guess it's easier now for people to find that information if they want to. I guess you have to cross that initial barrier of admitting to yourself that you have a problem. And I guess if you do that, it's probably easier now to get help and information that it used to be in the old days.
Now, you say that you get funding from local government, but you also have to rely heavily on events that raise money for Mind as well.
Actually, our own Mind doesn't do a lot of that, but
Right.
But certainly we've been very grateful in the past that not things we organised, but local people have actually put events on for us. I mean, very recently, in the last few weeks, someone whose son had died put on the event for us and donated the money. And similarly, even Marks and Spencer's with a Charity of the Year for Stockton, and they did. I can't think what it's called now. It's like a raft race type thing.
Right, yes.
And they raised money for us. So, yes, lots of people out there were very grateful do put on events for us and raise money for us, which is really great.
Now, Christmas just around the corner, of course, a big time, lots of pressures on people as well. Do you find that you get busier around this time of the year?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I certainly find it stressful. I'm not sure our figures particularly go up because I guess a lot of our figures are to do with people being referred. We don't really get people just turning up at the door. So in that sense, it's probably fairly not static. What's the word I want? Regular throughout the year.
Right.
But I guess if you ask individuals, that I'm sure lots of people do find it particularly stressful.
Yeah, and of course the fact that Christmas, it is a time where families get together, but again, I think people with mental health issues can be easily sidelined.
Yes, I mean, this isn't our charity, but I mean generally I think it's Age UK, who I used to work for. I mean, they're running a campaign around making sure that everybody gets support at Christmas and no one's left alone. Because I guess loneliness is a factor for decreasing people's positive mental health as well. So
Right.
So I guess in all sorts of ways Christmas is related to mental health.
Yeah. Right, now, you've brought in some musical choices of yourself, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If I give you that, then you can actually introduce it and we'll play it for
yeah,
you.
thanks. I'm still waiting for the call to be on Desert Island Discs. So I thought this was a really close second. So I thought this is my chance. So yes, I picked a couple of songs, and this one's called "He Haunts Himself."
Right.
By a band called Wild Women. And I partly picked it because it ties in with some of the things we're talking about. It's very much about someone who's feeling underconfident and not sort of integrating with people, and they're very socially isolated, although it does have a happy ending. So that has ties in with mental health in the wider sense, because certainly one of our major projects, we've got a few £1 million for this in Middlesbrough, Aging Better Middlesbrough, which is aimed at people over 50. That's tackling people's social isolation and loneliness, which affects mental health in a whole range of ways. I don't think they've actually got their website online yet. But
Mental health this morning with Mark from the Middlesbrough and Stockton Mind. Now, Mark, we see quite a lot of shops around Stockton, Middlesbrough area. I mean, are they very busy?
Oh, that's a very good question for somebody who lives in Gateshead. But
Oh, you live in Gateshead?
I live in Gateshead, yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, obviously I do some shopping locally. Yeah, I don't know. Ask me another one.
Right. Well, I tell you what, let's go on to the official questions. So what do you do?
So I've got a few jobs, but I'm actually helping build Mind's presence in Stockton. So we felt we were doing a lot in Middlesbrough. We wanted to do more in Stockton, so I've been helping people do that. But one day a week, I'm also working on Workman Stigma, as I said, funded by the council. And that's one of the things that I was particularly keen to talk about.
Right,
So
yes.
in terms of the stigma stuff, what we've done so far, other than we're really pleased to be talking to you, of course, is we're probably going to be doing something with the university in the new year, where some of the university bands have said that they'll do a concert for us with songs which are relevant to mental health. So I'm really looking forward to that happening. we've also thinking of doing some stuff around film and how film presents mental health. Obviously, there's a whole range of films, but some of the classic films have a kind of negative image. If you think of something like Psycho, that's quite a negative image of mental health. Halloween, is might be, people might like it in its own right, but in terms of its presentation of mental health, as the kind of the main Michael Myers, I think, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, kind of being a crazed killer. Whereas in reality, even people with severe mental health problems are much more likely to hurt themselves than hurt anybody else.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're talking about some of the other kinds of mental health, such as anxiety or depression. Again, it's very much about how people are feeling in themselves, really, rather than having any opportunity or desire to hurt anybody else. So, so we thought we might do some stuff around that. Perhaps around Oscar time, we thought that might be a good time when the media might pick up on that. So,
do you think that the media can portray mental health in a bad image?
Yes, I mean, obviously the media is a big thing. I don't want to criticise everybody. I'm sure you're doing a very good job.
Thank you.
But yes, I mean, it can quite easily slip into being something that can, just be used for dramatic purposes and to get people watching and stuff. If you think of the number of psychopaths you see on television probably every day, compared with probably I don't know what the real figures are, but I imagine the number of people who are killed by people with mental health problems or, psychopaths, is really tiny. But actually it's something that, we use as entertainment, really, which is kind of odd, really, if you sit back and think about it.
No, that's it, because it is a case, isn't it, that, the people say, oh, well, these films, like, as you say, Psycho, they don't affect people, but they do in a way, don't they? And they can be quite dangerous, these films.
Yeah, I mean, just talking personally, whenever I come out of a movie, particularly if I've been to the cinema where it's a really immersive experience, I'm still kind of living it a little bit, when I get out to the car and stuff. So, I mean, personally, I think, they are actually quite powerful. Yeah. And certainly, if you look at some of the evidence about, TV and movies and stuff, it obviously does affect us because everything does. And particularly if the messages are repeated again and again and again. And obviously, there's other positive storylines around the mental health as well. But, there's certainly historically, even something like Jane Eyre, if you think about that, the kind of, inverted commas, the mad woman in the attic, has a long history in Gothic novels and things like that.
And of course, things like video games as well, they're in the news at the moment because there was a news story, I won't mention the name, but there was a guy who literally reenacted what he had played out on the video game. I think it was some gory video game, and he went out and he killed about 5 or 6 people. So yeah, it's again another stigma. It's another subject that really has to be tackled.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, from a range of angles, both in terms of if I say people haven't got mental health problems, bearing in mind that 1 in 4 of us is in a year, so people who haven't got mental health problems at the moment, they obviously have responsibility is too strong a word, but it'd be useful if they thought about mental health and weren't so scared of it and was very supportive of people who had mental health problems. But certainly people have mental health problems themselves, stigma affects them in terms of both other people's attitudes and perhaps how they think about themselves. Now, as I said earlier, when in my 20s, when I had a kind of mild depression, I think as well, having depression, there was a slight shame about not feeling happy and stuff like that. And certainly, it wouldn't have crossed my mind at that time to go and get help because, there's nothing wrong with me kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I think it's quite deep, the stigma.
I think as well, you hit the nail on the head there when you said about attitudes. It's all about changing people's attitudes about mental health, isn't it?
Yes. And I guess it's a long-term thing. And, if you think of the asylums in the 19th century and people actually going to watch as a form of entertainment and bedlam and all those sorts of things, we've obviously moved a long way, but we've still got some distance to go. Okay,
we go to your second musical choice, Mark, and another one that I haven't heard of, but looking forward to listening to it. So would you like to take it away and introduce it, sir?
Yes, this is a song called Consider Me by the Faith Brothers, who were a band in the mid-80s. And this song actually personally means a lot to me. It's actually a song about, in a sense, being proud of yourself, in a sense, and also accepting yourself. but also other people taking that on board as well. So in terms of stigma, I guess, because stigma is about shame and hiding, this song's sort of saying, this is who I am, accept me, and also I'm more than this, and I'm going to get better, I'm going to be better. And I remember actually about 85 or something like that, playing this song, and it really touched me. I cried a lot, and I felt much better after that. And I actually felt a lot of love for people. So it was actually a really healing song for me.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. So, why not introduce it, sir?
Again, to you too.
Right, now, here's the next question. What's the main aspect of your job?
So one of the big things in my job is to do with combating stigma. I've been doing that, although I've worked for mine for a few years now, I've been doing that for a couple of months now. And I was really keen to work with other people and also to engage people through things that I thought were quite exciting, such as the radio, the music. As I said earlier, we're hoping to do some stuff with some bands. I've also, may or may not come off, but I've also got a meeting with someone from the university about computer games as well, and perhaps I might use those to do some stuff around mental health.
I mean, the great thing about it is that social media, there are so many ways that can help mental health, isn't there? You know, I mean, the fact is that, you know, as you just said, computer games, music, other ways in social media, going to the website and looking for information. Social media plays a very big and important part in the mental health issue.
Yes, I mean, both in the sense that charities such as ourselves, the health service can kind of give out information, but also in the sense that, you know, people who have mental health problems can talk to each other and support each other. And I guess that's one of the, you know, one of the big changes in the last few years in terms of the whole thing around the internet and social media, that it's not just anymore, you know, one person like the state or a charity kind of putting information out. It's this whole kind of organic thing where people can talk to each other. Yeah, which is really exciting, and you know, I'm sure it's only just beginning, really.
So, talking about social media, music, how does music actually help mental health?
There's obviously in terms of music therapy, of which I know a tiny bit, I must admit. There's a whole lot of theory there around how, ignoring the words, but actually just the music, resonates with people and kind of reflects their moods. What I'm particularly interested in, I've actually got my own website on this, is actually is lyrics, and how we can use lyrics to engage people, because I mean this is very much a personal thing, but lyrics and both really move me and kind of change my mood. And I said earlier, it can release me in terms of I find it helpful to cry, and because that's really powerful. But also, I guess they can also be an education tool as well. That's why I chose selected songs and things like that, and why I'd be interested in working with local bands, as I said, with the university, because it's okay, putting leaflets out and things like that, but I guess if you've got a problem, you might pick one up. But if you haven't got a problem, or you haven't admitted you've got a problem, you probably walk straight past them, because, if I ask you what was the first record you ever bought, you probably better tell me like that. If I asked you what was the first leaflet you ever picked up, you'll remember. Yeah. So I think there's something about music that, really engages with people, interests them, which is always a good thing in the first place. But also, once you've got that interest, it can both emotionally move people because of the power of the music and the power of the lyrics, but also potentially it can educate people. One of my kind of dreams, other than being on here, of course, was that one day I'd like to put on a mini musical with pre-existing songs that people have written to tell stories. I guess in some ways, people like ABBA and a whole range of bands like Queen have done that already with their own songs. But I have actually started thinking about how, you could put songs together to tell a story about mental health, which might be a way of engaging people and getting them to think and stuff. So, I'm really keen on music, as you can tell.
Now, projects play a large part in Mind for raising money and raising awareness. Are there any projects that are currently going on that you're involved in?
Well, certainly Middlesbrough as a whole are really well, not lucky because they worked really hard to do it, but they got lottery money for this thing called Aging Better Middlesbrough, which is to support people over 50 around issues around loneliness and isolation. And yeah, I mean, there wasn't that many places in the country that got it, and Middlesbrough did. And last few months they've been kind of setting it up and talking to people about what they need and stuff, but soon it will kind of be very much going live, and there'll be lots of projects. One of them is to do with actually just telling people what's going on, so so that people say, "Oh, I'm a bit lonely, I don't know what to do." They're about to find out, what's happening. I mean, we were talking earlier about. You're always looking for additional DJs and other people to work here. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing you could put on, if you're a charity or you run courses or something, you want to put it on a database, you can kind of do that. The project's also, offering kind of buddying support if people need one-to-one support. And if necessary, for some people, maybe counselling support. So that, there's a whole range of things that Aging Better Middlesbrough does. And then more generally, Mind does a whole range of things in terms of one-to-one support, like counselling, other forms of support, supporting carers, that kind of thing. And also, again, in Middlesbrough, we offer courses on mental health issues, either for people recovering from mental illness or for the general public.
Right. Okay, we go to your third and I do feel like we are Desert Island today. We go to your third and final musical choice. So, Paul McCartney, We All Stand Together. Why that?
A few people have asked me that question. They said, "Oh no, you haven't picked the frog song." The reason I picked it was I thought, actually, in terms of what we're talking about, I thought it was a good one to kind of to end on, because it's kind of the emotion and sense behind it, in terms of, I call it the frog song, which its proper name is We All Stand Together, and the whole thing about supporting each other. So, as I said, 1 in 4 people have a mental health problem at any time. No, not at any time. At any 1 year, 1 in 4 people have a mental health problem in the UK. So obviously that's a lot of people, and we all need support. I suppose there's also something about not wanting to make people with mental health problems look as if somehow they're just victims and they need support and they can't give it, because actually within Mind there's lots of projects where we help people recovering from mental health issues to support other people, to run their own support groups and help us in other ways. So I guess this theme of We All Stand Together is really powerful in terms of both improving mental health and fighting stigma.
Okay, well, if you'd like to introduce it, Mark.
And if you want to sing along at home, feel free. Dun, dun, dun. It's Paul McCartney and We All Stand Together.
Mark, and he's from Middlesbrough and Stockton Mind. And just talking, you've travelled all the way down from Gateshead to be here today.
Yeah, I do that every day.
Wow.
I've got used to it now.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a nice stretch of road, actually.
Yeah.
You can get early in the morning. Well, yesterday, for example, there's a really beautiful sunrise, and the actual sun going up, pink sky. So as long as it doesn't snow, I'm quite happy.
The A19, it can be an absolute wonderful motorway, and it can be the bane for all drivers sometimes as well. But I say, Gateshead, just amazing. Right, now, we're talking Mind. We're going into our final few questions here this morning on Ignition Radio. So what does Mind do generally?
So Mind is actually a national organisation. And nationally, it does a lot of campaigning work, and it works with government and things like that. But they're not branches. Each area has its own Mind, and they're independent charities in their own right, who are supported by Mind. It's almost like a branding exercise at one level. So Middlesbrough and Stockton Mind, who I work for, we mainly provide services to people. We do a little bit of work around campaigning, as you can see today. But we support carers. We offer counselling services for people with mental health issues. Then we also run a recovery college to offer courses to people with mental health issues, and we also do some courses for the general public. And then we also help people with mental health issues in other ways. A lot of paid staff, but we also have lots of volunteers. Some of who have had mental health problems themselves, some who haven't. And obviously our board of directors is also volunteers. So
you rely on volunteers quite a lot then?
I think we've got more volunteers than paid staff, although I guess in terms of hours, the paid staff will do more. But certainly, you know, we're really grateful for people volunteering, and it's a very important part of the mix.
Right, let's talk websites, telephone numbers. Now, website first, if you have a website, what is that?
Okay, it's a bit of a mouthful. It's, although it does make sense. So it's the www.middlesbroughandstocktonmind.org.uk.
And the phone number?
01 642 25 7020.
You should have your own show, Mark. You really should.
Funny enough, the person in the other room, Paula, was saying that. She said this slot would actually be very good.
Well, Mark, thank you ever so much for coming in this morning and taking time out to come to Ignition Radio and talking about a subject which isn't talked about enough, I think.
I agree totally, and thanks for having me. I was slightly nervous, and I must have had a confession that I actually left the memory stick at home with the music, so I had to go back and get it, but I'm really glad I did.
Great, and of course a great musical choice as well. I mean, I've never heard of Wild Women and He Haunts Himself and the Faith Brothers. Heard of Paul McCartney, though, but a fantastic music choice. I feel like I've done a Desert Island Discs chat today, but again, thank you for coming in and sharing your thoughts on Mind. And as I say, may it long continue.